This is Chance from Next Iteration. Welcome to another episode in our Clean Code with AI series. This one will be on enhancing existing code. Let's start. I'm going to share my screen. In the last two episodes, you would have seen that we had built a rock, paper, scissors game, and we also had spent some time refactoring our code and tests. To give a quick recap of what this code does, there are two players who are playing this game. They each participate in a round. They pick a hand, and then the round determines the winner, right? So now, if we need to enhance this code, let's say that now there is a requirement that we need to play a best of n number of rounds and then determine the winner. So let's see how that enhancement goes. Prior to doing that, I want to take a quick moment to address something that was not done correctly in the last round. If you go to the player class, let me go to presentation mode so you can see this better. We had made player a value object, and the equality was being compared based on both name and hand. But if you think about it, hands could change, right? Because the player picks a hand. So the equality should be done only with name. So why did the test fail last time? Because we were not using value objects during assertion. We were comparing the reference itself. So let's do this, right? So let's bring back value objects and see if the test still pass. So I'm going to replace the reference of player one when we are doing the asserts with the corresponding value object. So I'm going to replace assert equals player one with assert equals of creating a new object with the name player one. So let's do that. And let's go and replace all. Yeah. Let's do the same for player two as well. So we have consistent code and we have the best practice of using value objects also coming back. All right. So now that this change is done, let's run all the tests, and expectedly some of the tests fail because the equality is still based on name and the hand. So let's go and quickly fix it, right? And then we can start looking at the enhancement. So I'm going to delete this code. I've done this last time, but yeah, I should have chosen better in the option of removing hand and just retaining the name so that the equals and the hash code works correctly. Now, when we rerun all the tests, they would expectedly pass, and the value object pattern is also working fine. All right. Now that we have working code, let's look at the enhancement where we need to do a best of n rounds. So I'm going to start with a test class. Let's call it a match, where a match is composed of n rounds. So I'll create the match test class. I'll go back into presentation mode. Let's do test-driven development. So I'm going to start with a new test. The AI assistant is kicking in and telling me to and is telling me to go with some suggested tests. But let's still retain control and model the tests well, so then it can start to recognize the intended pattern. So I'll call the very first test very like taking a baby step. Let's call it as best of two match. That's the minimum number of rounds required to compose a match. So we'll say best of two match is won by player one with 2x wins. Let's start with simple scenarios. So now this modeling is not done. So let's start doing it. Let's start with var, which is an implicit local type. And you can see the AI assistant recognizes var better than a class name. That's what I realized from last time. And it's able to say, let's create a new match class and pass it the number of rounds. But I also want that match to consist of players as well. So I'll say player one and player two, but these don't exist. I think that is why it didn't give you the suggestions yet. If you start off saying as, yeah, see now if you see, I'll create player one, player two, and then the match got modeled. Let's first get the code to compile. So we will create the match class and we will name it well so that the code remains clean. We'll call it this as best of rounds to express our intent well. The player field names look okay to me. So let's go back to the test. So we have two players and we have composed a match object. Now the players need to pick their hands. So we will say player one picks rock, player two should lose with scissors, right? And then they need to play two rounds. They play the first round, and let's say they retain the same hand, so they could play the second round as well this way. So we are doing a chaining syntax here, right? And this is not compiling it, so I'm going to introduce the play method in the match class. And for a trivial implementation for this to pass, I'm going to return the same object back. Yeah. And once this happens, we need to assert that player one is the winner. Yeah. And again, this pattern is almost there, but not fully accurate. We will introduce a property to determine the winner. And let's call it as match.winner. Let's add a trivial implementation for the test to fail. So this could be null or this could be player.none. And once we run the test, expectedly, this test will fail because it is expecting player one to win. And you see the stringified version of player one, whereas the equality will be based only on name, as we just made that change. So to make this test pass, what is the most trivial implementation you could think of? Yeah, one is let's start introducing fields for these parameters. Let's introduce for player one, player two. We should perhaps do it for best of rounds, though it won't be used for a bit yet. And we can hard code this to return player one as of now. So this test should expectedly pass now. Yeah. So now let's take the next step and inverse this logic to check what would happen if a best of two match is won by player two. Yeah. And AI is trying to keep up with me, but it's not accurate fully so far, but I do appreciate the assist. And now you can see that it's able to generate the players and the match. Let's see if it picks the appropriate hands. It's saying player one will pick scissors and lose to rock of player two. That's great. It's ensuring that they played two rounds. And then also it's able to assert that player two should be the winner. Great. Yeah, now let's run both of these tests and we will see that the second test will fail because we have hard-coded the result to return player one. Now at this point, I'll go out of presentation mode and I'll invoke the AI assistant by saying AI actions, new chat using selection. And I'll create a brand new chat. I don't know why this is disabled, but yeah, let's delete this for now. We are using Claude Sonnet. And I'm going to add the context from the UI. So I'll basically give it my entire project from here. That's something that I learned newly. And also, I'm going to say, I'm going to be very specific in terms of my prompting, of my prompting to tell AI that there is a test that is failing and it needs to write the passing code for it. For this failing test in match test.java, I'll also be very specific to say where it should write the passing code. And let's see what happens from here. You can see it has taken two attachments. There is a selection and also the project view. So it's analyzing the failing test and it's giving an explanation of what changes it is going to make. And one learning here is that the AI assistant is not in agent mode yet. So it will not be able to access your source file directly. And the way you need to work with this is to copy paste the code onto your IDE, right? And let's see what has been done. I can see a bunch of changes has been made. We see the two players and the rounds. It has changed the name of the rounds for some reason. There is player one wins, player two wins being counted. There is a played rounds as well. And once the match is played, it is capturing whether the round was won by player one or player two and incrementing the count appropriately. And based on which count is greater, it's going to return that player. And in case of a tie, it returns a null. It's looking a bit excessive to me. So let me give one more attempt to be conversational with AI and say, simplify this to the bare minimum code for the failing test. Let's see if we get a simpler code now. Yeah, now you can see that there is a hallucination. It did not read the entire context, right? And it only said, okay, you only want to pass that test and you said bare minimum. So let me give you only player two. So that's okay. I think we have got what we wanted as a start from AI assistant. Let's continue refactoring this code. So the very first step that we do is to run all the tests and to see if this implementation works. And now that the tests are passing, it gives us confidence that this works. So let's start simplifying this and also refactoring it. The first step is to ensure that we have the correct naming. So I will change rounds to best of rounds. I should have probably done it to the field as well. So that is done. Player one, player two is fine. I'm okay with the simplistic approach of counting player wins. I feel that the played rounds is not required yet. So let's remove that and let's remove any code associated with that. Um, and here, in case of a winner being drawn, let's return our null object pattern, right? So that is consistent. And let's run this code to see if it still works. It still works. I want to simplify this further. I want to also format it better. And I could remove the braces here for better readability. I can keep these as two if conditions and continue removing the braces. So the code is simple to read. And to determine the winner, I want to see if these two if conditions can be combined. So what I'll do is I'll see if all of them can be combined. Now I'm going to bring in the like this mode of AI to say simplify this. So note that when you typically invoke like the inline AI assistant, it doesn't have context of your entire code. So it will only optimize what you ask it to optimize for. I like this ternary operator syntax wherein it's sequentially checking who's the winner and then determining that to be one of the players or player dot none. But yeah, you may want to make it different so that you could read the code better, right? So let's now run the code and see if this works. This works. I know we have jumped a few steps forward because player.none has come in and the best of rounds has not come into play yet. So let's write tests to ensure that all the code that has come in has sufficient coverage. Yeah. So one other observation is that here, uh, like we are picking one hand and we are playing the same hand throughout the match. So one future change could be that the player hand gets unpicked and they need to pick the hands fresh, like at the start of each round. So we can make that change later. And the second observation is we don't need to write excessive tests now to test all combinations of rock, paper, scissors because that behavior has already been tested in the round test class, right? So this is only for when you're looking at a best of n match. Yeah. So let's improve the code coverage now by checking the draw cases. So if you are in a best of two match, it should be drawn um, when with, let's say, 1x win each. Yeah. So that implies what's happening. You have two players, you have a best of two match, and then both the players pick the same hand, they play two rounds, and so then the winner would be none. We already have the implementation for that within the winner property or the method. So that is working. Let's also ensure that this works if there are two draws as well. Yeah. So we will say, okay, I think AI heard me. A best of two match is drawn with 1x draw each. Yeah, almost there. I'll probably call it as with either 0x wins or 1x, yeah, or 2x draws is better. Yeah. And also this off naming convention is off. So I'll quickly fix that. And let's go ahead and generate this test. With this. Yeah, I think if some of you have a keen eye, you would be thinking, okay, why is Chance not looking at the incorrect test? I think, yeah, that calls into picture that sometimes you can write the most well-intentioned tests, but you don't know whether the test is asserting every single behavior. And that's where maybe a score or other things in the future can come in. So here, actually, it's 1x win each, right? So then player one should pick rock, player two should pick scissors, and then one round should get played, and then the inverse should happen. So that's the right test. Sorry about that. That was not intentional. Now let's make player one lose and player one win, and still see if this test passes now. That passes, that's good. So this is good so far. And now let's think about that. That behavior which I said that what if the hand should get unpicked when a round is played? And that test belongs in the older round test class, not in the newer one. So I'll come in here and I'd say player hands get unpicked after a round is played. Yeah. So let's see if the AI assistant is helping us do this quickly. It's great, actually. This is quite good. Not complete, still good, because there are two players. They're playing around. They're picking any valid hand. So it saw the older helper method that we wrote. And then what does it do? Does it know what else to do? No, it doesn't. So let's say I'll do a very simplistic test here. I'll say assert true that player one dot to string contains hand equal to not chosen. When you stringify it, now the hand should get unpicked because earlier it was a valid hand, and we do the same for player two as well. Yeah, but we don't care about the result that's happening. But yeah, I think AI has not given us this play. Okay, they actually have to play them. Now let's run this and it will fail. You can stringify it and see it. But I'm quite confident that we have not implemented the logic. So now let's go to our good old, sorry, it's a shortcut, yeah, to round.java. And let's introduce that here, right? So people are playing. Um, Now I want to add braces here so that I want to unpick player hands and then return if it's drawn. And the same should happen over here. So I will introduce a variable to store the winner. And then just prior to returning the winner, I'm going to unpick the hands. This method is not defined. I'll define the method here. And I'll say player one dot unpick hand, and the same should happen for player two as well. But the player class doesn't have this, so let's go and define that within player. And this should say this dot hand equal to, as the assistant says, not chosen. I think this can be a package private method because this need not be seen by the test, and I'll move it. I think this is package private, so I think it's in the right order. So let's leave it here, right? And now let's see without debugging if our code works. They do work. I think it's good, but always we need to keep refactoring our code. So I'm thinking I'm going to invoke the AI assistant. Maybe, yeah, just the inline AI assistant, right? Because this is in the context of this particular method. I'll say command slash, and I'll say simplify. So let's see what it does. All right, so it understood that the unpicked player hands was repeated twice, and it could potentially determine the winner within one line and then unpick the player hands and then simply return the winner. Looks good to me. So I'm going to run all the tests to see if this works. That works. Cool. So now that this has happened, I am thinking, are any tests failing, right? No tests failed yet. So let's not do anything yet. So I was hoping one of the tests here will fail if the hand got unpicked, right? So this is two wins. So player one has one. Say, I think that behavior is going to come in soon. Let's do that. Let's not preempt those things. Let it come naturally. So I'm going to add a new test. Now let's go to the next step. Awesome. I think the AI assistant knows what I'm trying to do. And you can also accept this word by word with the option and then the forward arrow. So yeah, the best of three match is good. It should be won by player one. But they don't need to do 3x wins, right? So this is where your judgment will come in to say 2x wins. But then we should name the test better. Should to say that best of three match ends when now we don't care which player it is. So let's say when any player has two wins, right? Because it's a best of three. That's the whole point. And it should stop. So let's see what happens. And if the AI assistant is able to help us model this well, it stops here. So I'll continue typing. I'll add player two. It suddenly stopped helping me and I have to start typing all of this. That's okay. Let's continue. Okay, now it has come back into play. Let's construct the match object as a best of three rounds and two players. And let's leave a one line gap and say player one picks rock and player two picks scissors and they play two matches or two rounds rather. And then the player one is the winner. So at this point, if the match continues to play, then we should throw error saying that, hey, that this match has already ended and you don't need to play further. And we expect something like a game as ended exception and when the match is tried to be played further. So this exception doesn't exist. So let's quickly create that in the source and we will extend the runtime exception. That's good auto completion. So this compiles, and now if I run all the tests, I get an error that the expected exception is not thrown. So I'll go out of presentation mode to go back to the AI assistant to help me with this. So let's bring out our chat window. And I assume that the old UI context is there, but let's not assume. Sometimes it's very transactional. So maybe I'll just still say I'll add the context from UI and be very specific again to go to our match test and say I have this test and can you write code? Can you write the minimal code to pass the failing test? And yeah, let's just do this. Sorry. So the expected changes will come in match.java. So let's keep that open. All right, this is too simplistic and it has removed everything else. Maybe because I said it is too minimal. I'll give one more prompt to, let's say, ensure the other tests continue to pass. Let's see if it gets this hint. And it's thinking now, it's bringing everything back, a few changes to best of rounds. And then it's making a check here. I think this is a bit complex. I think I'm going to make an executive decision not to use what the AI assistant gave me. But I think it was on to something, right? Maybe with the right prompt and on a good day, you would get that. And even autocomplete knows it. So, but I'll stick to the concept of clean code. So let's say if has game ended, this shows the right intention of what's happening. Then I need to throw the exception, right? And let's put that logic within this method. It's a private method. So let's move it down with the right shortcut. And now, when would the game end? The game would end if either of the players has a win threshold, right? And the win threshold would be the best of rounds divided by 2. So in the case of 3, it'll be the person has to win at least 2. So now I'll check if either player 1 wins is greater than the win threshold, because you saw the assistant was trying to show me greater than or equal to, but I'm saying player 1 should have higher than that or player 2 should have higher than that, and then the game ends. So let's see if this works. It still doesn't work because there is something wrong with my logic. So let's see what has happened. So the win threshold, let's go back to the test, look at it. The best of three match has been played twice. So by then, player one would have won, but I'm thinking there is a side effect now. Okay, I'll tell you what the side effect is. So let's do this. Okay, just to be absolutely sure, because we unpicked the hands, let's pick the hands again and then do this. Right. So that was the problem. Yeah, because the hands were getting unpicked and that was our contract. And that is why now we need to enforce this design better. So I think what we should do better is to say the play method returns a void. So it explicitly signals that you cannot chain the method and you need to invoke the method each time, right? So that's a better design. And here, because this is happening, it's the same one. So we can call this in a loop. I'd say I want to express intent well. So I'd say for I equal to 1 and I less than or equal to 2, I'm going to call this in a loop, right? And I'm going to copy this for loop. It may come in handy for the other failing tests. So now you can't chain this. Oh, I don't know why this has been duplicated here. I didn't catch it earlier. So let's also do this twice. This looks good. Yeah, this is not use the loop. It doesn't need the loop. It is good. This now needs the loop. Let's add that here quickly. Where is the other failing test? Yeah. So it's not compiling. It's not. It's failing. It's not compiling. And it's also a better test now. So now we made a design improvement. So this is how when you think contract first and you focus on test-driven development, you always think from a consumer point of view and your design gets better and the code coverage and your tests are like side effects, right? The intent of test-driven development is not only to write tests, it's also to ensure that your design is very elegant. All right, I think we have one more step to complete in terms of saying what would happen for an even number of matches. So let's pick as a multiple of three. Let's say best of six match ends when any player has, it should have four wins, right? You need to cross like a threshold further now. So let's do that. It's able to understand that we can use a for loop. It's using a similar one. That's good. And it's also invoking the play method a fifth time to simulate an exception. So let's see if that works. Awesome. So let's stop the kata here. We have made good progress. We have retained the existing logic of round with two players, and then we have extended that quite nicely with the IDE, with our code completion, with the refactoring shortcuts, and also the AI assistant coming into play often. And you would see that if you're not, or if you have not practiced this, or if you're doing it for the very first time, things might get a little complex here and there. And you'll always have a assistant at the side to brainstorm and to figure out the best approach and to ensure that your code is clean and also your design is elegant for the end user. All right, awesome. With that, let's end the enhancement kata. Thank you for your time. Keep watching.